Hi, this is Jeremy Murphy, and I am in Lincoln, Nebraska, in the central part of the United States. I am a life coach, creator of the Positivity Patrol, a website and concept to link people to find positivity in their lives and be able to turn their lives around in meaningful ways. You can find the Positivity Patrol at positivitypatrol.com. And today's subject is intuition. We're going to be speaking about intuition, gathering information about it. I don't claim to know everything about it. I really appreciate the input and support of others in really unveiling the different layers of this topic. And it's a deep topic. It's a topic that it's a topic that has many layers, many different aspects, and I want to make sure that we get through all those layers, or as many as we can today. It's sort of like peeling an onion. But let me explain what I'm trying to do with the Positivity Patrol with topics like this. I'm trying to create a multimedia library to provide people with meaningful information that they can use to improve their lives and to really be able to achieve transformational lifestyle change. And I think if all of us work together on things like that, it just builds a deeper understanding and library of knowledge and wisdom. And I really look forward to obtaining that knowledge, wisdom, and experience from others, as well as sharing some of my own experience with intuition. And so we'll proceed with the topic. Before I get into this too far, I do want to indicate I had a recent revelation that revealed to me that my intuition was stronger than I thought, and that surprised me. And the assessment that was used is the 16 personalities test link that I've provided over on the side, and I would urge all of you to try that. It's an alternative personality test to the Myers-Briggs. There are so many different ways of assessing intuition. And there are different definitions of what intuition is. To some, it's a sixth sense. To others, it's a gut instinct. It's something sometimes you have to dig deep within to find it, and sometimes we get detached from it. But I think if we tune into what our intuition is, very powerful transformational things begin to happen. And I'll give you my musical insight. I have played the piano since I was 4 years old, played in the orchestra, played violin when I was younger. And you think about an orchestra, you have the oboe player playing the concert A, and the orchestra tunes. And you have the, usually the concert master or concert mistress will play an A in the violin. Sometimes the strings and the woodwinds and brass tune separately. Sometimes we tune all together. It depends on the size of the orchestra. But my point is, intuition is something that we need to be attuned with. We need to be connected to. And in the same way that each instrument has its own pitch and notes that musicians need to play during a symphony, for example, everybody's got to be playing their notes, and they have to be obeying the rests and things like that. And if that fails to happen, then you have an orchestra that's not working together, and ultimately you have a train wreck, unless you have a conductor that can bring them back together. I want to say welcome to Paul. We're just talking about intuition today, but glad you could join us. We're, as members of that orchestra, sometimes you lose track of where you are. And I used to play in the first violin section, and sometimes I was in the second violin section. I really liked the first violin section better. But there were a couple times where I auditioned at the first violin level, but they thought I was good at it, so they would make me the principal of the second violins, meaning the top second violinist, to make sure that the second violin section's in concert with the first violin section. they've got to stay together, and there's give and take, and there's fugues and things that occur in music where you have fugues rotating through Beethoven's Ninth, for example. You have all these fugue parts in the fourth movement in the Ode to Joy, and every part has to execute. Every instrument has to execute its own part and to play the music as written. And the singers with the fourth movement of the Ode to Joy, they have to sing their part, and they have to stay in rhythm with each other and listen to each other. And I think a lot of intuition is listening, and it's listening at a deep metaphysical level. I'm not talking about on the surface listening. I'm talking about deep listening that requires reflection, setting aside time, all distractions, unplugging from technology. I mean, this is a very serious inquiry to me. But the 16 personalities test that's flying through the chat now, I can drop the link again later. But I took this assessment less than a month ago, and was shocked to learn, according to this assessment, it said that I was 93% intuitive. And that was the highest assessment percentage on any of my test results. It just kind of shocked me. And I realized I was intuitive, but and sometimes you can take these tests, and on a different day, maybe I'd be 20% intuitive and thinking a lot more, maybe 80% thinking instead of 20%, or the 20% intuitive. And I think that's the continuum. If I have the continuum correct on this personalities test, I think that's, the continuum is between thinking and intuition. With the Myers-Briggs, they kind of, they fall into different categories altogether. The thinking, is on a continuum with feeling, and intuition is on a continuum with sensing. And I think there is our senses do reveal information to us that is important in absorbing with intuition. For example, I'm an auditory learner. So if I can hear something, it imprints it much more deeply in my being. And I think a lot of intuition is experiential. So we're relying on the library of knowledge in our brains, or our own experience and the experience that others have shared with us to really give us a valuable idea as far as how we can navigate the chaos and decisions that we have to make in life. And let's be honest, sometimes we're at a crossroads. We don't know which way to turn, and we find that we just have a feeling. Sometimes it's even deeper than a feeling. It's kind of a metaphysical sense of which direction we should go. And sometimes it's very difficult. Sometimes we get a metaphysical sense that we should go two different ways that diverge. And then we have to really stop, reflect, pause, and try to figure out, is my intuition really giving me different signals, or have I fallen out of touch with it to the extent that I don't know which one is the right path? And there can be a big lack of clarity in our lives. And I think really being in touch, in tune if you will, with the intuitive ability that we have, I think it's something that we can teach ourselves. I think it's something that we can teach others, and really something we can use to enhance our ability, as long as we'll listen to it, to make correct decisions, to really reflect and make sure that the decisions we make, that they're at a deep enough level, that they're well thought out. I think there is thought connected to intuition, but I think intuition goes deeper than that. I mean, like I said, it's experiential. There's some sensory things that give us different signals. For example, sometimes you get a strong sense that something is wrong. For example, today I got a phone call today before, I was just working, and suddenly the phone rings, and I answered it, and caller ID said it was an unknown name and number. And I answered it, and, somebody trying to, pretend that they wanted you to wire them money or whatever, one of these con artist type of schemes. And people shouldn't really attempt those with lawyers. If someone's going to try to con me on the phone, and I get a strong intuitive sense that something's wrong, that someone's trying to commit a crime, I'm not gonna even listen to them. I may get adversarial and respond to that, but we have to listen to things like that. And if we don't, we can get burned. You can't be gullible enough. You can't test what someone is telling you, and really make sure that you've reflected on it intuitively deep enough to know, what they're really trying to say, what they're really after. I think intuition allows us to read between the lines, not necessarily in a legal sense. As an attorney, I have been trained to read between the lines, and sometimes have fallen into that trap a little too deeply. Sometimes you have to look at things on the surface, and those reveal things to your intuition as well. But if we read between the lines to a limited extent, and balance that with what's really being said, I think we can come up with a deeper impression of what intuition is and what it means. But like I said earlier, to me as a musician, there's an auditory portion of this that just being in tune and in touch with intuition, and knowing when we stray from it, that we can that it's something we can relearn. I think sometimes we unfortunately just the intuition falls off, or our skill. We feel like our skill set isn't working. I think sometimes we stop listening to it, or we forget how to listen to it. We get distracted by chaotic events that may occur in our lives and things like that, and that's why it's important to try to get that back. I do want to welcome Christian, Claudia, Walter. Let's see, Walter, Ha, and Mike. Thank you to all of you. I don't want to miss anyone. I'm trying to greet people as they come, and appreciate all of you being here. So really I guess my interest in this is trying to figure out more about it. I think, there are other assessments of intuition. I mentioned the 16 personalities test, which I think is very valuable. I don't know a lot about the strength of that relative to the Myers-Briggs, for example. Puts intuition in a different category and not in a continuum with thinking like the 16 personalities test does. But when I got that assessment and I realized, okay, this says I'm 93% intuitive. What am I doing with this? Am I really using this? Can I use it to a greater capacity? And if so, how? And who are the people in my life that I know who are intuitive? And what can they teach me about it? For example, there are people that have much more experience than I do. Either through the adversity that they faced, or the years they've been here on the earth, or people that just simply they seem to listen better. I've been told that I'm a good listener, but I know last year I found that suddenly I felt like no one was listening to me, and I caught myself telling someone that on the phone, and then I really started reflecting what is going on. Why would I say that to somebody on the phone, and I realized the people stopped listening to me because I stopped listening to them. And that was very revealing. And it was a point where I had to make a decision to course correct, to change my path, and to realize that if I continued down that path, it was just going to cause untold destruction with the relationships in my life. Communication is so important. And I think if we're not listening to each other, we can't intuitively pick up the information that we're meant to absorb. And I think if we can absorb that information, we can share it with others. But we need to make sure that we're really listening to our to our true inner voice. I think sometimes we get the sense that we have an inner voice, and we think we're listening to it, and we think it's the true inner voice. And then we get information suggesting that it's not. We get false impressions, and sometimes we just, there are also moments in life where you have sensory overload and you have to cut through all the noise and figure out what is the most important thing that I'm listening to. What can my inner voice tell me about what I'm hearing right now? For example, you could be outdoors and you could hear, there could be jackhammers and construction occurring and things of that nature. And the only sound you might really hear might be a beautiful bird singing. And to give you another example, you're crossing the street and there are construction jackhammers and things like that going, but the most important sound you might hear might be the sound of a car screeching on its brakes about to hit you, but you hear it and you realize, no, I've got to stop. But it's not always that. We don't always get that intuition immediately. It's not like putting your hand in a hot burner on a stove and realizing, oh, I've got to remove my hand or I'm going to burn it. It's much deeper than that. And I think we have to set aside time to really be able to find out what our intuition is, what it's telling us. Sometimes I think it's a matter of just asking ourselves, what should I really be doing today? What's my number one priority? What are the 1 to 3 things that I need to do today? And which of them is most important? And really attacking the most important things at the beginning and moving on to the less important things after that, and realizing that sometimes things have multiple parts. And maybe we can't finish something one day, but maybe our intuition tells us, well, I have to write this chapter of this book today. And maybe I'll write the next chapter next week. And I think it just, sometimes we get powerful thoughts and we don't know what the source is. But I think many times the source is metaphysical. It's a higher intelligence, universal knowledge, speaking to us in some way. And when that happens, we have to get these thoughts down. We have to write them down. We have to record them in some way. And, we have to try to put them in Evernote or something like that, somewhere like that, where we can go back later, assess what those thoughts are, figure out what their strength is, and then figure out what their purpose is and how that's meaningful to moving on. So, that's just, I don't know. Sometimes I think sometimes we're outside, especially, and I think we get a lot of signals, sending us messages, the beautiful weather, the singing birds, some of these are sensory, but some things have deeper metaphysical meaning. And, and some of them may have deep metaphysical meaning to me, and they may not have deep metaphysical meaning to you. It just kind of depends on the how we interpret them to some degree. But for example, I'll go out running and we have an infinity road near us. And I love that word infinity. It's limitless. And I think that's a powerful image for us to have in conjunction with intuition, because it has a boundless capacity to it. And so when I'm feeling tired when I'm running, I'll try to move the route over to run by there. And if I see that word, I start thinking about that. I start thinking about boundless energy and, maybe looking at more infinite possibilities for the future of my life, and not feeling like I have to walk in this comfort zone box or cube that we all seem to be boxed up in sometimes. And if infinity road isn't enough, sometimes I'll go, there's an infinity circle. And then, circles are a sign of perfection. And if you have the infinity symbol, you have the double circle, the 8 on its side. You can make that into perfect circles. And, so again, it's the same effect. Sometimes the sun will be perfectly reflecting in clouds, and it'll reflect on the infinite, when I see the words infinity road or infinity circle, the only words I really interpret and start thinking about is the word infinity. And, although with the circle, I should admit, I do think about the circle, because there is perfection in the circle that there perhaps isn't in the shape of the road. I mean, we try to make roads straight, but not every road is straight. Some roads in life are curved, or they're more of a wavy line. They're kind of a zigzag shape. So I think the path that we're on is not always directionally going to be the same, and I think our intuition helps reveal to us when we should be on a different path. To share another insight, last year I was working for a nonprofit. I worked for them for 7 years. I won't reveal the name of the former employer, but I just got a strong sense that I didn't belong there anymore. And I've been an attorney for 22 years and thought this was my dream job and my life's work. And I thought maybe it'll be the last job I ever have in life. And I started realizing I have all this creativity, and the creativity is, to some degrees, intuitive. I think there's an overlap between, if you're really in touch with your intuition, your creativity just explodes exponentially, to the extent that you can't even keep up with your thoughts. You can try to record them, but you're not going to get them all down. Fortunately, some of them will come back to us, and we'll remember them, we'll write them down and be able to use them in a meaningful way. But I think, when I got this strong sense, I didn't belong there anymore, and I didn't want to listen to that. I didn't want to hear that message. I didn't want to absorb that message. I didn't want to accept that message. I didn't want to change, didn't want to leave. It was too uncomfortable. But it finally got to the point where I had to listen to it, because I did lose my job. And after that point, I realized that I had a strong intuitive sense that something was wrong. I knew that something was wrong. I didn't know how to address it. I stopped listening to my intuition. People had stopped listening to me because I had stopped listening to them. I think that's communication is reciprocal. It's a two-way street. And if we fail to deliver on our side of the communication street, I don't think we can expect others to really listen to us. We have to stand to deliver when it comes to communication. We really have to put the work and effort into it, or it doesn't, it doesn't connect, doesn't work. Do want to welcome Jonathan, I think, joined us, and I think maybe left. But I think, the intuition is, it's a multifaceted thing. It's, I think of it as like peeling an onion. You think you're the outer layer, and then you peel another layer off, and then you peel another layer off. And some of these are just, you could call them layers of the onion. You could call them masks that we wear that we think we're someone, and then we pull the mask off and we really realize that we're someone else. We really start listening to that inner voice and making sure that it's true. But we get these false perceptions and think that they're real, and then we learn that no, they're really not. There's something telling us that something's wrong or that something's false, and we test those and really assess their truthfulness. I think we are able to pull some of those layers off, pull some of those masks off, and reveal the true nature of who we are. And if we can get to that point, I think one of the most important questions we can answer in our lives is, who am I? And beyond that, I think as a philosopher, as someone who has a philosophy degree, I think it's important to ask why and why and why and why successively until we really get to the core of who we are. And I think if we do that, we are in touch with our inner voice again, and it will speak to us. And, sometimes it's just a matter of setting aside the time, the effort, unplugging from technology, like I said, really setting aside the time to think about where am I now? Where am I going? Is that where I'm meant to go? And really, what is my true purpose and mission in life? I believe it was Mark Twain that said, the two most important days of our lives are number one, the day we were born, and number two, the day we realize why, for what purpose we're here. And I think we all have divinely given purpose, and I think we have to find ways to figure out what that is. And that takes work. That takes soul searching. The intuition, to me, it is connected with the soul. It is connected with the heart. It is connected to the mind, but it's also metaphysical. It's outside of all of those things. And, of course, with the soul, it is metaphysical. It's not really constrained by the body. But, so to me, the intuition is, it is connected to the soul in a meaningful way. But it's also connected to the heart. There has to be a compassionate, caring, heart-based attitude that underlies and intersects with intuition, or it's not going to be true or successful, or to really give us the lens that we need to see the truth about things, instead of the perception of things can be very different. So I know there are different interpretations. Some people think the intuition is much more shallow than that, and that it's all heart-based, and it's not that simple. I mean, and you can't really say that the information that's tied to intuition is, that it's all sensory. Some of it is sensory, but some of it is different. If it goes to the heart and the soul and the mind, sometimes it gets difficult to separate. What is the true source, and is it some combination of the three? So I think it's important, if we're trying to be intuitive, to really get in touch with what our soul is telling us, what our heart is telling us, what our mind is telling us. It may be sort of different things. Each one could be telling us something slightly different. But I think in the intuition is kind of an amalgamation of what those are telling us, maybe tied more to the soul than the others. I think, sometimes people just think it's easy to just say that it's a sixth sense, but it's really a simplistic way to look at it. It's more metaphysical than that, in a philosophical sense. It's intuition that I think the source is from outside the body. And if it's from outside the body, then it's outside the mind and the heart. And it's tied to the soul, because I believe that our souls are, they aren't necessarily constrained by the body even here. I think they're, because the outpouring of our souls, I think, reflects in the lives of others. And I think sometimes they're, that energy travels by our words, our actions. And that's why it's so important to really make this a centerpiece of our lives. I think it's an extremely important thing that all of us should try to work on and work together on, gather information on. I'm intending to go very deep on this topic, step by step. It's going to be there's a lot of soul searching involved. It's not, and I wish it were otherwise. I wish we could just snap our fingers and be able to have an easy description of what intuition is. I mean, it would be great to have the empirical, definite understanding of what it is, but it's so nebulous. It's so amorphous. It's hard to define. It's not an easy issue, and there's a lot of depth with it, and people have different interpretations of what it is, and people actually probably argue over, is it metaphysical or is it simply physical? Can it be tied to all the senses? And what if someone is disabled and they don't have the ability to perceive something from one of their senses? Their other senses end up compensating for that. So, we can't say that someone who is blind is any less intuitive than someone who is not, or deaf for that matter. And look at the musical works that Beethoven produced, many of which were produced and composed and performed when he was completely deaf, and he had no idea he could hear the music in his head. And I think, to me, that's maybe one of the most powerful things that I can say about this is for a musician, if you have moments in your life where you hear certain music in your head, I think that has meaning. And I think it could have powerful meaning. It could be a message that, if you really think about what the source of that could be, if it's a divine source, it could be a big signal as to where we should go, or what type of thing we should proceed, which path we should take, whether we should take the easy path or the more difficult path, the road that everybody else is on, follow the pack and let everyone else lead, or blaze our own trail and take the road less traveled, as Robert Frost would say. And I think I believe a lot of us are called to take the road less traveled. And quite honestly, that's the path that I would much prefer. I know it's not the easy path, but I am getting the strong sense that that's the path that I need to proceed with. I just see, if we have this openness when it comes to intuition, I think it illuminates where we should go and which path we should take. And sometimes that's not the path we can expect, and it might be a different path than we really have in mind or really want to proceed down at all. Sometimes we have to assess that. I see we have a question from Mike Lair. Thank you, Mike. What do you see as the relationship between intuition and our unconscious? Very good question. I think there is a connection. The difficulty that I have with answering the question is some of what intuition provides us is surface things that I think we are conscious of. And of course, there's the subconscious. Sometimes our mind is subconsciously processing things we're not aware of, and we learn that later when we really create and set aside the time and space to reflect and determine what that means. But I think there's a pretty strong relationship between intuition and our unconscious mind. We have all these thoughts that we're conscious of when we have them, and sometimes we develop that consciousness later of thoughts or feelings we had at a certain point. And but I think it's a strong relationship. I don't know that it's, I'm not sure that all of intuition is unconscious. I think some of it is conscious at least a basic level. But if you're talking about the metaphysical dimensions of intuition, I think that does get into I guess you could call it subconscious, unconscious mind. It's the thoughts are there, but we're not really aware of them. And, our mind can only process so much at once on a conscious level, I think. And we can rotate those topics to try to allow us to process more unconscious information. But I think we have to find ways to bring an awareness of those unconscious thoughts to our understanding, and to really make that a part of our routine. That requires a great deal of effort. And I think we have to ask ourselves, am I really aware of what I need to be in order to have a true inner voice reflection of what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, what I'm sensing from one of my senses, what I'm smelling. And sometimes you get information from one of your senses and you don't know which one it came from. Maybe it came from a couple of them. You can smell and taste your food at the same time. It's probably easier to do one at a time, but we do have the ability to use more than one sense, and I'll put that up on the screen for people to view, because I think it's a good question. It's a strong relationship. It's not a complete relationship. I don't know if I could break it down to a percentage or not. And I'm just speculating, but maybe. And feel free to disagree with me, but I'm going to say at least 20% of intuition may be things we're conscious of, and I'd say at least 80% is things we're not, and we'll become conscious of later, perhaps, if we're lucky, if we're blessed with the people in our lives to really help us see our blind spots. I think we do all have blind spots we're not aware of. And I think if we're really listening to others and communicating with them at a deep level and have some deep metaphysical discussions, I think we'll become aware of just how much we're missing. And sometimes it takes someone constructively telling us something that we're not aware of for us to really fully realize that, oh, I really wasn't aware of that whole interpretation of this at all. That I hadn't thought of that. And, you know, I thought things were like this, and you tell me they're like that. And you, with the point you've made, I really need to go back and reevaluate how I'm perceiving things, because perception can be a powerful lens which can give us correct information, but it can also give us incorrect information. You know, we can perceive things through rose-colored glasses and get a much different impression than we get if we take our glasses off, and you know, then they're not affected by the quality of the lens or the tint or you know, things of that nature. I mean, we have to some of the intuition, I think, comes to perception, but I think a lot of it comes to feelings that are hard to identify, and they're subjective. They're partly objective, but a lot of them are subjective. And again, you know, I don't think we can just say that intuition is purely a feeling. It's partly a feeling, but it's also based on our perceptive abilities and the extent to which we've gone to strengthen our ability to perceive, interpret, evaluate, double check. You know, we don't want to have a mistaken impression on something and then have it destroy a friendship or relationship. And so I think it's, you know, it's something we have to think about as far as how do we, what tools do we have that we can use to figure out what intuition is and what it means, what it should mean, and what it can mean if we take it seriously. It can be an extremely valuable skill. Art, I believe that you could look at it as an art. You know, some of it is science-based. There's all this, I'm sure there's many scientific studies as far as what intuition is and what it means. And I did a couple of searches today to find out how much information there was out on intuition, and was just amazed at how many people are talking about it, writing about it, speaking about it. There are all kinds of Google Plus Hangouts about it, some of which I've been a part of, and some of which I haven't. But I want to recognize the value of those discussions that are really at a deep metaphysical level, to really unpack and unravel what intuition is, what it means, how it can be used, how it can be used more effectively, how we can listen to it. But I think we also have to look at it other ways. I mean, we have to, some of it is seeing, you know, some of it might be, I'm not sure a lot of it is smelling. There could be a little bit that, you know, comes in that way, but I think it's mainly seeing, hearing, sensing, believing, perceive. You know, some of it comes down to belief. Some of it comes down to perception. Perception is not the same thing as reality, though, and sometimes I wish it was. But you know, you can only have rose-colored glasses, so you can only take that so far. If you take it too far, you're going to miss some of the reality that I think we have to admit. And that's some of the difficulty for me as an idealist. I tend to miss a lot of things, a lot of realistic things that I have to accept. And I've tried to force myself to do that sometimes, and realize that I don't have all the information. And that's why it's so powerful to have people to communicate with about this, and really find out what they think about intuition, its importance. I think a lot of intuition can be developed with having good coaches, having, some of it is probably developed with therapy. The difficulty with this is if you go see the doctor, if you go see a medical doctor and you say, I'm having these issues, I'm having these problems, I don't really know what the problem is, and can you help me? And, the doctor's going to conduct an examination, figure out what's wrong with you, if anything. And in some cases, say, okay, well, I'm going to give you this diagnosis, and here's your recommended course of action, which may or may not include medication. But the doctor's not going to come back and say, oh, your problem is you're lacking intuition, and you need to you need to get back to pursuing that at a deeper level. I mean, unless someone is a psychologist, psychotherapist, psychiatrist, they're not going to come up and say, oh, well, your prescription is to go cultivate, unleash, and try to capture your intuition at a deeper level. Although I think sometimes that could be valuable to have someone in our lives tell us that. But I mean, that's not going to happen in a medical examination unless it's someone in one of the categories that I spoke about. Now, it is something that I think we as life coaches can help people with, because people do fall out of touch with their intuitive sense of self, where they are in the world, where they're going, what signals they're getting from their friends and family on whether they're on the correct path, whether it's means a career path, having the right friends or family. I think it's important to have the right, good, solid, strong inner circle. And I think a lot of people intuitively think they're in touch with the right people, and their inner voice will reach a point where they decide, oh, well, I have some issues and problems here. There's sometimes I'll call it your gut instinct, although intuition is so much more than that. It just tells you something's wrong. It tells you something's wrong with that relationship, and that it may be, in some cases it's us. In some cases it may be the friend that we're associating with. But think about this. Sometimes we just get this intuitive sense that something's wrong with someone. And we call them or we contact them and we find out something was wrong. And we wonder, where did that come from? And I think if we really reflect on that at a deep level, I think a lot of that information is from a divine source, from the supreme being, from God. Sometimes it just, with the strength of our connection with our spouse, with our siblings, with our closest friends, I think there are moments where we realize or we feel something is wrong, and when we check that, we find that something is wrong with someone and they did need our help, and somehow we got that sense at the right point. And I hesitate to use the word sense because some people will say that intuition is more than just sensory perception, and I agree with that. But I think it's metaphysical. It's not just extrasensory. It's at a metaphysical level. It's in some respects, it's at a theological level, and that's a whole different dimension of this discussion. But I think we have to listen to those signals. We have to analyze those signals when they come in. We have to test them. Sometimes we're not testing them to the extent that we should or need to, and we don't test those out. We find that we're not really following our intuition. We're following something else. We're following our impulses. I think intuition is deeper than just impulsive action or impulsive perception or reaction to something. And I think if we really get in touch with our intuition, we get to a point where we're not simply reacting to things, we're acting. We're acting. And it's very important that we move from a point of reacting and overreacting to everything, because when you do that, I think what I found for myself, you lose control of your emotions. And if you lose control of your emotions, you're not going to have some very healthy relationships. You're going to have some big arguments. You might have fights, if you will. I don't think that's productive. I think don't get me wrong, I think it's healthy to have arguments, disagreements, if they're productive. But I don't think it's healthy to fight for the sake of fighting. That's not who I am. It's not what I believe in. I think for me, I've tried to listen to my intuition and get in touch with it by listening. And my intuition has told me that that I need to proceed down a different path, that I don't belong in the courtroom anymore, that my days as a courtroom lawyer are over, and I'm okay with that. And I say that as someone who's been attorney for 22 years. But my intuition's also telling me that there's a book you need to write, and it's called The Positivity Patrol, and this is what should be in it, and these are the chapter titles, and this is how it should proceed, and you need to launch this Positivity Patrol website and try to connect people using the, understanding of positivity and creating a grand unified theory of positivity, if you will. That is something I'm working on. That's one of the chapters of the book. It's going to be the most challenging chapter of the book, honestly. And really trying to be there for people and help them to be a diplomat. I'm going to teach a session about diplomacy on Blab, on being a peacemaker, someone that can negotiate with intelligence with others. I think those are important skills, and they intersect with intuition. For me, because listening to my intuition, that's what my intuition is telling me that I need to be doing. And I've even taken a post-law school course on negotiation, on how to deal with tough relationships and resolving difficulties, and figuring out how to navigate tough issues where you have to cut through a dispute or argument or contract and figure out how to bring it to resolution, how to tie a bow on it and bring it to a close, to resolve it for good. And that's really what my intuitive voice is telling me. My intuition told me to take the skills that I have as a lawyer and to take those skills that translate to being a life coach, to serve people at that level, because I found that I was being bombarded with requests from people that needed help in resolving their relationships. Their communication skills broke down. They couldn't figure out how to navigate trouble, chaos in their lives. And I found myself time after time pulling these people out of these messes. And that's really part of what being a lawyer is being able to, when people have problems, to be the problem solver. And so I think some of being intuitive is solving the problem in an intelligent, rational way that's not entirely logical. You can't completely deduce how you get to intuition. It'd be nice if you could. I'd love if we can have a syllogistic mathematical equation for that. But it's much more complicated than that. And that's challenged me as someone that took philosophy and logic and learned all the syllogisms and logical fallacies and things like that we have to we have to listen to over time. So some great discussions over here in the chat. I want to thank Chuck for your input. I'm really glad Mike mentioned the word synchronicity, because that was something I almost wrote down to make a note to myself. But I'll get back to the orchestral example that I used at the beginning. You have people that are, the orchestra is playing, and the orchestra is supposed to play in concert, working with each other instead of against each other. And if that stops happening, it's not synchronous anymore. The synchronicity is lost. And again, the orchestra goes down a train wreck, which only the conductor or perhaps the concert master, oboe section leader can fix. That's something that we have to keep in mind when we're talking about intuition. I mean, there is a synchronous aspect to it. I mean, if we're in tune and attuned to what our intuition is telling us, we are synchronized with that orchestra. We are synchronized with that conductor. And I believe that we're synchronized with the divine conductor, with God, who gave all of us a divine mission to fulfill here on earth. And sometimes we struggle to figure out what it is, but I think it's important that we all try to make that determination through some intense soul searching, and really find what our most important path is that we take. The tough part of this for me is knowing we all have limited time. And I've been given some signs in my life that I may not have much time. Let's face it, I'm asthmatic. I may have a shorter lifespan than some of you that don't have that condition. Although I'm in great health and I'm thankful for my health, I know that can happen. That can change in an instant. I see so many people struggling with chronic illnesses and all kinds of problems, diseases, terminal diseases, things like that. I think we have to listen to our intuition now. And there's an urgency to that. And I think if we lose sight of that, I think we're not fulfilling our mission here, because our time is limited. It's finite. I'm struck by the irony of having used infinity earlier in this discussion, and now I'm back to infinity. But I have an affinity for both words, and they both fit the discussion. So I hope I hope you can bear with me there. Yes, we did. I did drop a link, and thank you, Chuck, for dropping the link again. This is an amazing personality test that I took a couple weeks ago. I know some of you joined me after this discussion began, but it was interesting to me that when I took this, my personality changed in the past year. And for someone who's been pretty set in his ways for many years, that really surprised me. The intuition part didn't change, but it was much stronger. The interesting thing to me is I was ENTJ the last time I took the Myers-Briggs, and with some pretty intense listening, practice, discussion, moving more of a metaphysical level of, not just being stuck on the ground all the time, but going to the 30,000 foot level, looking at where things are and what's really important. That's become very important to me to not get so caught up in the details. I'm very detail oriented. So I try to force myself to get up to that 30,000 foot level to be able to really be able to see the big picture. So the personality test, though, that I took, the 16 personalities, it revealed that I had changed from ENTJ to ENFP. And this was shocking to me. For a rational, logical lawyer to bear with me, to move from to move from thinking to not thinking quite as much and feeling more than thinking, I was very surprised. And I don't know if it's just the day I took the test. Some people are saying you've got to take this test every 6 months because your personality could change. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can handle that. I can only handle it maybe once a year. And the other part that surprised me was to see that the judgment, the J, it changed to a P. And the interesting part of that with our discussion today, I think, is perception is really a big part of what's involved with intuition. Judgment, there's a jurisprudential portion of judgment that I think we as attorneys tend to use, but we can get to a point of using that too much. And if it's overpowering our perceptions, then sometimes we have to move back to the perceptive side. So yes, I see that Chuck has taken the test, and I'm not going to repeat what your personality types are because I'm not sure if you want to have it on the recording, but it's in the chat for what it's worth. But the other interesting part of the 16 personalities test is that it does an assessment between assertive and turbulent. And I know what assertiveness is. I wasn't really sure what turbulent meant in a personality context. And so I had never seen that there was a kind of a tail end of the 4 categories that Myers-Briggs uses to see that there was a tail end that occurs after a hyphen. And I don't know if I should tell you which category I'm in on that grid. I think Ha knows already, and I'm comfortable with her knowing. But but just suffice it to say, I think, feelings and perception enter into intuition a lot, but they have to be checked by our rational mind, by our, at least a jurisprudential sense of judgment. If we're using that as kind of a sort of a guide, not to the point of being, judgmental. I think that's something else. But I think you can be prudent about something without allowing judgment to overpower every decision that we make. But I think if we really set aside the time and effort to make intuition a big part of our lives, I think it can have a very powerful effect. It can have a life-changing transformational effect. I just look at the path I'm on now and compare it to where I was a year ago, and I can't even believe where I am. But I do have a sense that the true path that was intended for me, that it's being revealed, that people have helped reveal it to me by things they've said or the questions they've asked, or I'll give you an example. Last year I started joining discussions on Skywire on Google Plus, and we discuss just all kinds of metaphysical issues. Everything from intuition to, we've had discussions on infinity, and infinity was one of my favorite ones, actually. But it really deepened my sense of intuition. We start relating to and hanging out with a bunch of intuitive people, and it just has a creative, just creates a creative synergy among the group. And I got a much deeper sense of intuition was, and that was very valuable. So that's, that really, I want to recognize, the people that are on that Skywire panel, and I'm not going to be able to name them all because it's a long list of people, but, the Skywire community is led by Marilyn Shannon, and she was one of those people that took me aside and said, look, I know you're a lawyer, but I think you're intended to be doing something else. And I said, what? For an attorney to be told that it's one thing to sense that inside, but if you start hearing that from a couple different people, you say, wait a minute, what am I doing? I'm applying for all these legal jobs and they're all in the courtroom, and you feel like if that's your stomping grounds, that you have to stay there. And just to hear that from, not just from her, but from, Elaine Nieberding was another one that kind of told me the same thing. And I started listening to that and realizing I'm not on the path that I think I'm intended to be on. And so it was a difficult thing to leave the courtroom behind, but I think it's for the best. I think my courtroom days are over. There have been some great joys and successes there, but I think I'm looking forward to to better things, be able to help more people at a deeper, meaningful level. And it got to the point where when you're bombarded with people who need your help and you can help them and you find you're helping them, and it's in kind of a life coaching construct, then you have to start asking yourself, well, why wouldn't I open my heart to do that all the time? And if you find that you really like and love to do that, and I found that I do, I mean, that's the centerpiece for what I hope to do with the rest of my life. And so anyone who needs that type of help or assistance, I'm happy to provide that, to help other people figure out what your career path is, what your purpose is, what your skill set is, what it could be, what hidden gifts, talents, and secrets you have that you can unlock. And I think that's the beauty of intuition. It's at such a deep level. And some of it is very subconscious, like Mike's question indicates and hints at. It's like unlocking a deep box. And once those talents and gifts and strengths are unleashed, I think we all find that we can rise to our true potential, and we can help others reach their full potential in very meaningful, powerful ways. So I do want to welcome Natalie and Carla for joining us. Thanks for coming. And let's see. I have the seats open. Any of you are welcome to jump in and talk about this, or you're welcome to ask questions in the chat like we're having happen over here. I'm going to, let's see. All right, I'm going to let Chuck in. Hey, Chuck, how are you?
Well, 3 minutes before noon my time, good morning, so I can still honestly say good morning. Fine, thank you. And again, another very, very positive and intriguing topic, intuition. And as you know, in past conversations, I've pretty much lived a life completely following my intuition. That's why I walk to a different drummer than most people in the world do.
Sure.
And, you know, the fine line between intuition and subconscious, I, as a simple person, it is who I am. So therefore it is my subconscious, because my subconscious is who I am. And it, again, the intuition is there. You know that I met Shirley on April 9th. We got married on July 9th, 37 years ago. And it's interesting that she is a truly intuitive person also. So all of our lives we've acted upon our intuition, but we have trained our subconsciouses to be autonomous within ourselves and not allow social pressures to be part of how we think or who we are.
Right.
You know, we look different, we walk different, we lived differently, and that's just the kind of life we chose to take. Not saying that it's the right way for everybody or the wrong way. We don't. We've not been socially directed.
Right.
And you know that I am so excited that you made the choices that you did. Mm-hmm. And you're doing this publicly. It's almost like, you know, it's almost like you're on recovery.
It's so funny you mentioned that, Chuck, because the friends that I mentioned who took me aside and mentioned you're not meant to be on this attorney path. They use the recovering attorney language. Yeah. So I don't remember if I told you that or not, or if you just intuitively sensed it.
No, it is, you know, and I shared with you my good friend who was a medical practitioner, a very good one. He still advises me medically, but he gave up his license to become a landscaper. Mm-hmm. But he's still a doctor, and a darn good one. It's that he did not agree with the state licensing board and the requirements that they felt he should practice. I mean, he should follow to practice medicine. Mm-hmm. So he was a recovering doctor. But you know, I'm excited that we're seeing more and more people starting to take hold of their own life. Mm-hmm. And divesting themselves of these trappings and what I call, you know, gee, I'm 34 years old, I'm supposed to be. I should be here, or I should be there. Right. I always remember, and I shared this with you, when I invited my dad to come down to help me plant my first radish crop. You know, God love him. He'd be 97 this month. He's sitting on the back of the planter. I plant about 3 or 4 acres, and he says, we had a beer, okay? And he says, you know, son, I don't understand this. You paid for all this education, which I did. You know, I left them money when I left to go to college because I'd earned a lot in high school. And he says, and we came to this country for a better life, and here you are farming. Yeah. And he says, well, you're nuts. And I says, well, you've known that for 20 years, for crying out loud. You're my dad, you know. And so this is what I mean. I'm excited to meet more and more people who are doing things like this. And guess what? I'm not farming today, right? Yeah. I mean, I farmed until I was finished with farming. Sure. And other things come along, but we chose them because they felt good thinking about them, not too deeply. Henry Ford made decisions quickly and was very slow to change. Right. And by being that way, it's cost me a lot of money. Mm-hmm. We've made some poor decisions intuitively, but the money is transient. It comes and goes like, water through a sieve.
True.
And so you never live your life based on money. You live your life based on what you're doing. And you're a perfect example. And I just hope that, Jeremy, you keep going in this direction, because you are on track, man. I'm excited.
Thank you. Thanks, Chuck. I really appreciate that. It's it's hard enough to move to another path, and to hear that from you and others, I think that gives me, I wouldn't say validation, but at least maybe needed confirmation is a better way to put it. And we're all looking for signs to tell us that our inner voice is telling us to do the right thing, that we're correctly interpreting it, if you will.
I think you are. I've got another, I'm always doing something, but this Blab, what are you guys doing with Blab? Carla, I mean, isn't this Blab totally disrupting your life?
Yeah.
It's terrible, isn't it? I mean, I have this beautiful planned day, and it just seems to stretch, because every time up here in the corner, you get this little notification that Jeremy's on, or you're on, or Matt Sherman's on, or something. And they write such intriguing headlines. The curiosity gets the cat, or whatever. I forget. And you go up there, and then, okay, now I got to go back, and go back. But
we want to be positive about Blab, though, Chuck. This is the creator of the Positivity Patrol you're talking to. So.
I understand. No, I think it's going to be used properly by a lot of people. And I have some clients who are coming in, and they're going to be talking to very specific audiences. Now, the public may join them, but they're going to use it as a customer service communication tool for their businesses.
Yeah,
I think it'll be very powerful, very powerful. Right. So anyway, Carla, what's happening with you?
Well, it's very interesting you'd ask, Chuck. Have you been following me?
Well, you know what? You look familiar. You've been on. No, but I'm going to follow you now. You're followed now.
Yeah, you need to follow Carla if you're not already. And I'd ask
all
of you
I'm laughing even louder now. No, Carla, but I've seen your lovely face on other Blabs, I believe. So, but
Carla is one of my laughter allies. One very important laughter ally, actually.
Well, it does so much for us, I mean. Laughter is what we wake up for,
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting that you're saying that today, because I'm also doing the challenge with Andrea Bowen for Do It Scared. Mm-hmm. And I have to admit, I've been a little scared in some of the decisions that I'm making, but I have stood behind them. Mm-hmm. It's been an interesting few years for me, because I decided that I was going to focus on the laughter, and Blab has allowed me to get better known with it. Finances have been an issue for me, and I was thinking, well, maybe I should go and do some tutoring or do some silly job that'll take just a few hours of the day and do that. And every time I go to do that, it just doesn't happen. And something inside me says I need to be focusing on this laughter revolution that I have started.
Yeah.
And I'm really being torn a little. And I need to make my own decisions on it. And I keep on deciding, hey, just stay with the laughter. It's going to come through.
Right.
And I guess I'm coming here and saying, hey, guys, give me some recognition. I don't even know the word that I want to use right now. To just stay on the path and stay working on it diligently and know that I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been told by the founder of the Art of Living Foundation that this is what I should be doing.
Yeah. That's a good insight, Carla. I mean, you have to listen to those signs and moments where you feel like a path has been cleared for you to do something like what you're doing with the Laughter Revolution, and really be able to do something with that. And, to make it, the exciting thing for you is to be able to bring a worldwide component into it. I know we've co-hosted shows and we've had people jump on from across the Atlantic. Carla has some kind of transatlantic magnetic appeal
her
I don't
laughter
necessarily
is
have.
everywhere.
But when we're on together, it's Carla's laughter that's pulling people from Europe and getting them to jump on Blabs that want to laugh with her. So, that's a very, that just, some people have that magnetic appeal, some people don't. Carla's one of those people that has that. And that's just based on the couple Blabs that we've co-hosted where we've combined laughter and positivity. And I think there is an overlap between the two. You can't have positivity without laughter. I'm not sure you can have laughter without positivity, although laughter can turn you from negativity to positivity. And I think that's why your work, Carla, I think is exciting.
Carla, you said something that created a little concern in my mind. You mentioned sometime the financial side of it doesn't seem to be coming together. And my past experience has shown me that if I'm concerned about finances, I'm not able to pursue that which intuitively I love to do as easily. And
Correct.
So I have actually gone out and done things for money, believe it or not, that actually intensified what I was going to. Now, I just had an idea. Laughter is relationship with people. And I had an opportunity to be a starter and a marshal at a golf course. Now, I happen to love golf, and the perks were I got to play golf for free, okay? I mean, big deal. They said, well, we only pay minimum wage. I'd give my money to somewhere else, but I did enjoy the $8 an hour, by the way. But anyway, what that did is because I was getting cloistered within my own space, and I had not been as social as I wanted to. So by going out and being the starter, which means I'm the guy that lets you start playing golf, and I got to listen to your bitches and moans, and I can make your starting more. And then the marshal, of course, is the policeman on the golf course. And I changed the whole way marshaling is. My job was not to tell you what you shouldn't do. My job was to make what you're doing better, okay? And what that did is it brought my mind back into focus, and I picked up $8 an hour plus playing golf for free. So maybe going out, like you said, and doing some, not major, but just to have those extra shekels really made me feel good too. And we were able to maybe go out to dinner more often. So maybe it might be good for the Laughter Revo to, if the finances are concerning you. If they're not, then I agree with you. The hell with it. Because money is so transient anyway.
Well, how I see it, it's really very weird for me. I shouldn't say weird. I'm supposed to be using a technical word. It has been an interesting journey for me recently, because anytime I go to do something, even at a school, I see Natalie said, have you unlearned to use your intuition in school or at work?
Great question. Thank you, Natalie. We're going to get to that. We're just trying to go through everything thoroughly here. So,
even at a school or even in work, it just doesn't last long. It may last 1 or 2 days, and then it kills itself. I don't know why. I was a really good teacher. I had a horrible principal, which was why I retired. But it just doesn't seem to happen, Chuck. That's what's so interesting about it.
So am I hearing you say that there's part of you that are concerned about the quote, the mundane financial part. And if that's affecting your ability to be the Laughter Revo, then maybe you should address it and do something. Or say the hell with it and continue to go with you. And you made a comment. I'm not going to type it now. As Jeremy knows, ever since my coronary, typing is really a chore for me because I dictate almost all my stuff. But anyway, you said you really were a good teacher. No, you are a good teacher. There's no were in this world. No, but I mean, you said you said you were a good teacher and had a problem with an administrator. Well, you are a good teacher. So I just, it's again up here. You are a positivity, Jeremy. It's not you were. See, I wasn't. I'm not. How can I say? I was a good farmer. No, I'm still a good farmer, even though I'm not farming. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I am an excellent teacher.
That's right.
You
That's
can't,
what I.
you can't remove the teacher from the teacher. I don't think you can remove the farmer from the farmer either. Even if a farmer retires, you can't say the farmer doesn't dream, live, eat, sleep, and think about farming and making sure the crops are planted on time, bountiful harvest, maximization of crops, and things of that nature. So, same with the teacher.
One tomato plant.
Yeah,
you grow one tomato plant that gets 50 pounds.
Yeah.
Now,
go ahead.
I just read what Mike Blair wrote about a bully or a teaser, and that's one thing that I don't deal with at all. I will not laugh at someone, and I will not teach someone to laugh or bully someone. We use laughter as a positive thing to make people feel good about themselves. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Jeremy, I really need to take this point up.
That's fine. And I think it's, it's a valid question. And I think, it's something that you probably have to deal with in your work, Carla. And I have to deal with from a positivity standpoint but I think some of it goes back to Natalie's question above. Sometimes we have to unlearn the things that we learned that are incorrect, that are sending us either down the wrong path or sending us down the wrong path that, the type of paths that Mike identified. I mean, if you get to a point where you're a bully or a teaser, I mean, you have to unlearn the things that have brought you to that point and change your path, or you're going to end up you're going to end up in legal trouble or worse.
Absolutely. And my whole thing about the bully or the teasing, if you look into yourself and you go dive deeply inside yourself, you'll have a fountain of joy. Everyone, excluding anyone, has a fountain of joy within. And we can use laughter to tap that fountain and make it alive. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm going with it.
Good.
The Laughter Revolution is I teach a laughter meditation. Mm-hmm. I don't laugh at people. I refuse to do that, and I refuse to get into bullying of a person.
Yeah, and I think we have to draw that line very strictly. And I'm going to be teaching people not to be sarcastic, and I'm very serious about that because I think the danger is it gets too negative, and you start cutting people verbally. I mean, you start to hurt their feelings, and then you start getting zingers back, and suddenly you've created a completely different atmosphere than I think you have intended. And life is short. I don't think we have time to be negative. We have time to, be negative on a basic realistic level on things we have to be. But I think we've got to move on and turn things around using laughter, positivity, intuition, and other things. So
right.
So I appreciate what you're doing, Carla, and I just. One of the best things I can tell you is to just be patient, continue to reach out. Your visibility will rise the more time you spend on Blab. And, you already have the transatlantic magnetic appeal. So if you can get that going in different directions in the world, you have a worldwide reach on Blab. And with a topic like laughter, there are people all over the world that are interested in it, that need it as the type of medicine that doctors can't provide, or most of them probably won't provide in their medical practice unless they happen to be funny. There are some doctors funny, but but they're not going to be able to give them the kind of laughter medicine, if you will, that Carla can.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add that what I do is different from laughter yoga because we dive deep into the self. Mm-hmm. And that's what I am about.
Yeah.
And I'm here, guys. By the way, I haven't been on Blab that long, and I don't get on it every day. Mm-hmm. But I just, they said, do you want to tell your followers? I have over 200 followers now, and I have no idea where they came from.
Well, it's that transatlantic appeal, and your visibility. People see you on Blab, they want to connect with you, follow you, see what you're doing, and some of them might be other laughter people. Some of them are just people that let's face it, some of us aren't as funny as others. Some of us need humor in our lives. I'm a serious person. I need jokes. I need things that'll make me laugh every once in a while. Or I can't really, stay focused on, it's just one of those little tricks you can use to move yourself to the positive side, to the sunny side of the street. And I'm not saying excessively sunny that that you only look at that. You do have to look at the other side. You do have to be realistic at certain points in time. And but I think it's important to incorporate laughter into your routine. And I've incorporated it, maybe not a daily practice, but I try to use it more when I notice that I need it. So
very good.
Keep it up.
I'm wondering, Mike, did we answer your question?
I think so. I want to move on to Natalie's question that she asked in the chat. Have you unlearned to use your intuition in school or at work? And I think, a lot of living is learning to do things, and then you do have some unlearning that occurs. You have to unlearn the information that's no longer useful, the approaches that are no longer useful. If you're for example, if we're being closed and judgmental, we're going to have issues with being intuitive enough to be able to make decisions that are really tied to our inner voice. So I think, people talk about education being unlearning, and that's a very powerful contrarian version of education. But I think a lot of education is tied to that type of contrarian nature. If you're serious about it, you're going to learn things, and in the process of doing that, you have to unlearn things that perhaps are either not true or they conflict with, that you might learn that they're false. And if they're false, you really should unlearn them, or you're going to have issues in really being able to observe reality correctly. And instead, you're going to get caught in perceptive circles that will take you who knows where. My sister's a teacher. My brother-in-law's a teacher. My mom was a teacher before she had me. And so it's very powerful to look at what education can be if you look at it as not only learning, teaching, but also unlearning the things that you need to let go of, the things that are no longer useful, the things that are not true, and really stick with what is true, what is useful, what does help you maximize and optimize your talents, abilities, gifts, strengths. And Carla, you have a gift for laughter and humor that I think a lot of us lack, and I think a lot of it can be taught. But in teaching it, we have to unlearn having this serious stone-faced exterior and not being able to laugh about anything and not being able to tell jokes. And I think we take life too seriously, and I have that reputation, and I have that reputation up to now, and I'm trying to unlearn that because that's not useful to me anymore. It's very useful in the courtroom because it keeps you within the confines of where the judge wants you, where the jury is going to expect you to be, where your clients expect you to be. But outside of the courtroom, it just doesn't. There are moments for being serious, and there are moments where you maybe can't laugh at something due to a circumstance or whatever. But I really appreciate, Natalie, you asking this question. And, I think a lot of education is unlearning what's no longer useful, true, helpful, in really optimizing, maximizing our talents, gifts, strengths, and abilities, really moving on to where we're meant to be, and not just sticking where we are and feeling like we're stuck. I think it is useful in work too. You have you have moments in relationships where you have to communicate at a deep level. We have to let go of judgment. We have to be open to what other people are saying. We really have to listen. So, I mean, we can't put up this isolationist, I'm going to operate in my own silo and you leave me alone. And, you know, we have to unlearn things and behaviors like that, because those aren't cooperative. Those aren't collaborative. I did a blab yesterday talking about the power of cooperation. And I think people have to learn to not be as individualistic, and, you know, we can't all be Don Quixote charging a windmill, and, you know, that's great at certain moments in our life to have that kind of lonely quest. But I think life is meant to be more cooperative than that. And I think so, you know, one example I would give with work is, you know, trying to be more cooperative, collaborative, looking at new paradigms, shifting your perspective. I always like to, you know, last year I had to shift my perspective in a big way when my job changed. When I lost my job, I had to figure out what to do with work and all that. And I had to do a very major perspective shift in order to be effective and figure out what I was going to do with my career. So I had to unlearn, you know, my previous way of operating, you know, individualistically without anybody's help, and not asking for help because I don't need any help and I can do it all myself. And, you know, that's a trap. It's a trap that none of us should stay in. And it's something we need to let go of, because if we don't, we're going to find that we're, you know, suddenly we have all these ruined friendships and relationships, and we have to figure out, you know, what happened. I mean, sometimes people gravitate away from each other, and, you know, we have to go back and fix those relationships, and then figure out if those people, sometimes maybe people don't belong in our inner circle anymore. We might intuitively sense that that's the case. And so I think it does take place in the workplace too. I think you know, you have moments where you can intuitively, you can intuitively learn to do something. You can intuitively unlearn to do something if it's no longer useful, helpful, beneficial in a workplace. I mean, you have to be a productive worker. You have to be a collaborative person, and we can't all be followers. We have to have leaders. We have to have followers. We have to have team leaders, tribe leaders, if you will. But we have to work together. And if we're operating from a concept of not cooperating, not communicating, not listening, you know, those are the type of things that I would say we need to listen to our intuition and let go of those type of behaviors to be the most productive worker we can, whether we're an entrepreneur or a team member or, you know, working with others in collaborative, creative projects. You know, we have to find ways to do all of those. So, yeah, Natalie made a point over here in the chat. Most people are not rewarded for using their intuition in school or at work, and at work. And I would agree. That's, wow. There are moments where, if you're going in an intuitive direction, you're not dealing with people that understand that, or people that aren't intuitive themselves, or have lost their, you know, their ability to be attuned to their inner self, their true inner self, not just their false inner self, like we talked about earlier. You know, that becomes very difficult. There's a divide that develops. You know, you have people that are more sensory, that don't want to deal with the intuitive side of things, and think that that's, you know, some people are very critical of intuition and say it's all woo-woo and, you know, things that we're making up, you know, too hard to, if it's not empirically knowable, that it's not valuable. And I would disagree with that. I think that's something we need to dispel right here and now. I mean, intuition is a very powerful thing, and a powerful skill for all of us to have. It's not just a skill. It's not just a science. It's an art. It's really an art. It's not just a personality trait. It's a metaphysical art that I think we can learn and teach each other. And I don't think anyone has this perfect or knows the perfect way to describe it. And I think, you know, like Natalie reminds us, we talked earlier about the importance of experience. I mean, our experience is stacked with what our senses are telling us, what other people are telling us at certain crossroads in our lives, where we need those signs and signals as far as whether we're going the right direction or not. and to really listen to those, be attuned with them, and to move the right direction, and not, if we intuitively sense we're going the wrong way, that we're on the wrong road, we need to move to the other path. We have to move to the other path. If we don't, it just creates all kinds of problems, conflict, chaos, and then it's too hard to repair later. So we still have an open seat if someone wants to jump in. I'm trying to keep one seat open to kind of rotate through the questions. Natalie, I think we've answered your question. If we haven't, please let us know. You're welcome to jump in if you want to. I've got still have an open seat. I'm thinking, Carla, can you think of anything else on answering Natalie's question about unlearning? Do you deal with unlearning at all, or have you dealt with it, with unlearning that?
Oh, yeah. A lot. I actually said to Natalie in the chat box that intuition is always there. It's just learning to listen to it.
Yeah.
I think we've been taught so many times in our lives that we're supposed to do things in such a certain way, and you may be feeling, but I don't want to do it that way, or we want to listen to someone else tell us what to do.
Yeah.
And we need to just kind of dive within, meditate daily, and decide what happens, what's going on inside and what your heart is saying.
Yes.
And it does grow stronger, Natalie, as you experience it. Why didn't you come in, Natalie?
Oh, if she wants to, that's great. I don't want to pressure anyone to come in.
Oh, no, I wasn't pressuring her. I just...
But Carla, I love in your comment, I think the word that jumps out at me is the word listening. If we're truly listening to that inner voice, then we're going to hear what it says. We're going to hear what it means. We will be able to interpret it correctly, at least as correctly as we can. Sometimes it requires others listening to us and saying, no, I think you're listening to it this way, and I think it's slightly different. You might want to look at it this slightly different perspective. So, but a lot of it is experiential. And we can't really, like I said, we can fall out of touch with intuition, but I think we can get it back. And it's, I raised the question of whether whether intuition is contrarian or not. And I'm going to talk about this briefly. I'm going to be going down a contrarian path as a coach, as a writer. I'm not your typical cookie cutter attorney. I've set those days aside. Those days were great for what they lasted, but I think we all have to realize that our mission in life, our purpose in life, sometimes that purpose is for life, and sometimes it's transitory. Sometimes we may have a career path that it takes us to another career path down the road, and sometimes we have to recognize that and realize that. And sometimes it's our intuition that tells us that. If we develop that awareness and listen to it, ponder it, you really have to ponder it deeply, though, at a metaphysical level. And if we're not doing that, we're going to miss something. We're going to have moments where we have to shift to a different path if we learn that it's the wrong one. But I think I may have a blab on this in the future, linking intuition and being contrarian, because I think a lot of the world is kind of trapped in sensory, what your senses tell us, and detaching from experience. And I don't think it's wise to detach from experience. We all have painful things that occur in our past, but I don't think we can entirely detach ourselves from those, because I think I would call those learning lessons. And some of the lessons we learn the most powerfully are the moments where we feel like we lost, where we lose something. We lose a friendship, we lose a relationship, we lose a job, a career. Some chaotic, unexpected event happens, a catastrophic event happens. We lose something. And sometimes that helps us realize really what we're here to do, why we're here. I think all of us need to ask, who am I? Why am I here? And we need to keep asking why. And we need to keep asking why successfully until we get to the deepest inner sense of our soul, our being. And if we're integrating our soul, heart, mind, and our intuition, I think we're finally at a point where we have enough information to be able to make a rational decision. And then we have to check on our, we have to check on our intuition. Sometimes we think our intuition says one thing and it says another thing. And I think intuition can be fallible. It can be wrong in some cases. We may not, for example, we may not have all the information we need to make a decision. And so we need to be aware of that too. But I think a lot of us, struggle with intuition, with making it part of our daily lives. I think it should be a part of our daily lives. I think we need to set aside time to reflect, pray, meditate, write, listen, see, sense, and really look at what we can do in our lives to bring that creative fire out in us. And for me, it's music, writing, different things like that help me explore and develop that deeper intuitive sense of who I am, where I'm going, and why. And I think if we can do that, I think a lot of us can achieve a transformational lifestyle change. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help people do that with their life, with their health, also with their running. As a running coach, I realize that isn't, really the topic of this blab, but what I'm all about is transformational lifestyle change. And for anyone that's looking to do that with intuition or any other area of your life, I'm here for you. I'm here to listen. My door's open. My ears are open. And the most important thing I would say about this topic is 2 words. I'm listening. So
can I throw something in?
Yes, Carla, go ahead.
You sort of brought up something for me. I was a teacher in the DC public schools for 20 years. I was in a school my last year that it was total 24/7. I never got a break. Mm-hmm. The reason I'm telling you this story, that year was horrible. And every teacher that was older than the principal got canned, including myself. It's over. Mm-hmm. But during that time, when I was free during the summer, because in the beginning I thought I'd go back to the schools, but when I was free during the summer, I began doing more of my laughter thing with anyone who would want to do it.
Sure.
And I was having fun and I was having a good time. And it came September and it wasn't clear where I was going to be. And it came to my 20-year anniversary. Mm-hmm. And I thought, do I really want to go back to the schools? And it was such a clear no that I asked my union rep, I said, look, they haven't offered me anything to come back. I could go through the grievance, but we know they're being really crazy now. Can you get me retirement? Within 2 days, he came back to me and he said, we got you full retirement.
Okay.
And it was done. I was out. Mm-hmm. Now, I've had my struggles with this, but I think they're the struggles that I need to do some personal introspection in order for it to go past that.
Sure. Yeah. So, and I think we all need that introspection at different points. And I'm just amazed that it's at those darkest moments in our lives where our intuition sometimes gives us the most powerful information that we may receive. The changing of our path, if you will. And if you look at how many times people are going to change careers now compared to, say during the time of World War II or sometime like that, I think we have to recognize that moments like that are going to occur, and we just have to be cognizant of that and we have to be receptive to that information. We have to find ways to be receptive. We have to have our ears open, our eyes open. We have to listen. We have to have our awareness open. And I think all of us have something to teach each other if we're listening and open to it. But that openness has to be there. The awareness has to be there, and the willingness to learn has to be there. And Carla, as a former teacher, I mean, if people if they're not willing to learn, they're probably not going to learn very much. They're just going to ignore things, or it's going to go in one ear and out the other. So, but I think one of the most valuable things I got from my previous job was just learning that education is a lifelong process. And just because you have a bachelor's degree and a law degree, I still have plenty to learn. And that's partly why I'm spending so much time here on Blab, not only to help and teach others, but also to learn from people that just have a vast, vast amount of knowledge, wisdom, experience that I think we can learn from. So, I'd urge you to continue to share your lifetime experience and help you can provide others with the world. I think it's a very valuable service. And I think for all of you that are in the room and for all of you who watch the replay, I mean, you all are doing great, wonderful, transformational things in the world. We are the leaders and change agents that'll transform the world. I really believe that. I think there's too many followers in the world already. We might as well create a new set of leaders to take people to the finish line and take them there as quickly as possible. And if we see people struggling, really to extend your hand and to help give them that little boost. Even if it's just pulling them up off the ground, because I know for myself, I've fallen to the ground countless times, figuratively speaking, and there's always someone there to help and listen, help me process things differently, shift my perspective, shift the paradigm to a new intuitive way of working through life and making it a more powerful transformational experience.
And that's very true. And our changes, everyone has a gift. There's no one in this chat room or in the world who doesn't have a gift to give. And we need to just find that gift and run with it. Mm-hmm. And people found it before when, we had human values were really respected. Human values are being forgotten now. And we need to teach the kids that. I told kids who were emotionally and educably mentally retarded. Mm-hmm. And all of them learned something that year. Now, it may not have been what their parents wanted. It may not have been they went from a first grade reading level to an 8th grade reading level. But that isn't what we expected from them.
Right.
Well, what was expected was that they needed to learn to have value within themselves.
Yes.
And yes. I think they learned that, and I think they went away from my year with that feeling. Mm-hmm. They may not have known it the year we were going through it, but I'm sure it affected them. I had a kid who said, I can't multiply. And by the end of the year, believe it or not, she was multiplying 3 digits by 2 digits accurately. Uh-huh. Now, she used a multiplication chart, but who cares? She could do it.
Right. That's great. Yeah, that just shows the openness and the awareness of being able to process new information, look at things in a different way. It gives us it just takes us to a different level. I mean, some people talk about there being different levels of intuition, and some people are saying there's 3 levels, and I would say there are countless levels, and hopefully we all get to the highest metaphysical level of knowing it. What intuition is, how to incorporate it in our lives, and doing it daily, and not being afraid of people telling us that we're that we shouldn't be intuitively doing things. I mean, if that's part of our personality, our skill set, if that's one of our strengths, we should absolutely be using that to the fullest extent of our abilities. We have to be, because that may be the key thing we need to transform our lives. We don't know exactly sometimes what the key catalyst can be for lifestyle transformation change, but in some cases, it is the intuitive sense of creative vision for a brighter future that can transform lives.
Very true.
All right. Anyone else want to jump into a seat? You're welcome to do so. Anyone else have questions? Does anyone have a question? I will take the contrarian question off the grid here. So, Carla, you have any? I guess we'll see if anyone else wants to come in, but otherwise, do you have any closing thoughts about this topic, about intuition? Have you tested your personality, found that you're intuitive, or do you just intuitively know that you're intuitive?
I intuitively know it.
Okay.
I've been told for years that I'm extremely intuitive. Mm-hmm. And if I listen to what I'm hearing, I do very well. If I don't listen, it gets kind of screwed up. Yeah. If I say, oh, no, I'm not going to do this, mm-hmm. Intuitively, I know that I need to keep up with this laughter thing, and I will.
Good. Yeah, for anyone that hasn't assessed your personality for how intuitive you are, we've had a couple links dropped here at different points. I dropped it. Chuck dropped it for me also. The 16personalities.com, I think, is the link. I'm going to probably drop that in again because I see we have some people that were not here earlier. But that's the one that revealed to me, the high degree of intuitiveness. I'd never seen a percentage associated with it, and that is kind of what fascinated me about this this test. So I'll drop the link again just so you have it. Feel free to take the test. Maybe you prefer the Myers-Briggs. I didn't like the Myers-Briggs very much. I don't remember why. Maybe it was too psychological. I think the 16 personalities one seemed a little more philosophical and practical to me. And no assessment instrument is infallible. I think sometimes we can get caught up in that and think that they're going to reveal the same thing day after day. But I think it's valuable to know that our personalities can change, our degree to which we listen to our intuition can change. But I think if we truly look at what intuition is, what it can be, how it can change our lives in a positive way, I think it can be a very powerful skill and art to have and practice. I think it's beyond just a character trait or personality type category. I think it's a physical direction, metaphysical dimension to it that intersects with theology, with the soul, the mind, the heart, with all those parts of our being. So I would encourage all of you to unleash your intuition. I have to say that at least once in this lab. That's right, unleash your intuition. Figure out what it is, what it's telling you, listen to it, follow it. And I think if we can do that, I think we can unleash our true potential. And we'll see dramatic lifestyle change, the like of which we haven't seen yet, and we can't even imagine. So I think with that, we're going to welcome and say hi to Zaki, who joined us briefly. And unless someone else wants to jump in, I think I'm going to go ahead and close the recording. I want to thank all of you for joining us. I think intuition is a very important topic. There's a lot of depth to it. I feel like it's one of these topics that you can see the tip of the iceberg, but the rest of intuition is way under the surface of the water. And I think I would encourage all of you to try to really look below the surface of the water, see where that intuition is, find it, use it, unleash it, and use it as a tool to better your life and to better the lives of all your friends and family. And again, if intuition is a strength, a gift, and a talent that we all have, I think we have a divinely assigned responsibility to teach others how to use it correctly, and how to adjust it when we find that we're out of tune with it. And we need to be attuned to it in an orchestral sense, in the sense of a musician performing with an orchestra as a group, and not making a violin solo moment in the middle of a symphony that requires all the instruments to work together and to cooperate with the conductor. So I think intuition is like that, like all parts of the body have to cooperate to be effective, and the body has to cooperate with the spirit to be fully effective. I think we have to cooperate with intuition to be effective and a powerfully positive influence in the world, transforming our lives. So once again, this is Jeremy Murphy. I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska, in the Midwest. Some would say the central United States or the Great Plains. Take your pick. And Carla, you are, can you remind me where you are, just so we have it on the record?
Silver Spring, Maryland.
Okay, I knew it was on the East Coast, but I couldn't remember exactly where. So, okay.
20 minutes from the White House.
Okay, and Carla, can you drop your? Go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt you.
They haven't invited me for dinner yet.
Okay. Well, maybe someday, Carla. Carla, I would welcome you to, drop your link in the chat so that people can connect with you if they haven't. I think Carla's doing worthwhile laughter work. I will say too that Mike Lair, who's been active in the chat here, is doing a lot of work on intuition, and so I'd encourage everyone to follow him, and really to follow everybody that's been here in the room are good folks to follow on Blab and Twitter. I think intuitives need to work together, stick together, and teach people that are not intuitive how to do it. I think it's a skill you can learn, but a lot of us have been given this gift and strength and talent, and I think we need to use it, harness it, develop it, hone it, and use it to transform our lives. So let's go out and unleash our intuition. And thank you very much. Bye, everybody. Thanks.